Chapter 1. Silence in the Dark. James Holmes. On the outside, he was a quiet, intelligent, and reserved individual. But inside, something was broken, and no one noticed. This video isn't just a murder mystery. It's the story of how an ordinary young man, instead of going to a superhero movie, decided to write his own dark film. And that decision cost the lives of 12 people. But before we get there, let's take a look at how it all began. James Holmes was born in California on December 13, 1987. His family was educated and respected. His mother was a nurse, and his father was a highly accomplished math and science expert. James inherited this intelligence. He was quiet as a child. He didn't have a large circle of friends, but he excelled in school. Although an introvert, he excelled in his studies. Even in high school, he stood out with science-related projects. People described him as shy but intelligent. When he started college, he decided to study neuroscience. After his undergraduate studies in San Diego, he began his master's degree at the University of Colorado. A successful career seemed to await him. But something was changing inside. James began to withdraw from people. He was skipping classes and cutting off contact with his professors. He felt lonely, but this loneliness was no longer just a social disconnect. It was a mental one. As he retreated into his inner world, dark thoughts began to take shape. The first signs of psychological distress emerged during those years. His professors noticed sudden mood swings, but no one knew exactly what he was thinking or planning. James was no longer just a quiet student, he was a bomb waiting to explode. And as the days passed, this bomb continued to build silently until that dark night. Part 2, a movie on the screen, a nightmare in the theater. On the night of July 20th, 2012, hundreds of people had bought tickets to see The Dark Knight Rises at a movie theater in Aurora, Colorado. The theater was packed. People had grabbed their popcorn and silenced their phones. Batman was about to appear on the screen. But someone was waiting in the theater. In that darkness, he thought he was the Joker. Shortly before the movie started, the fire exit door quietly opened. No one paid attention, because no one noticed that the person entering was carrying a bag full of weapons on his back. It was James Holmes. He was wearing a bulletproof vest, leg guards, a throat guard, and even a gas mask. He was dressed like a video game character, but this wasn't a game. Around 12:30 a.m., the movie had just begun. While the crowd was quietly focused on the movie, Holmes suddenly walked to the front row. Then he fired a tear gas canister. Everyone thought it was part of the show for a few seconds. But then a gunshot rang out, then another, then screams. Holmes began firing randomly with his AR-15 semi-automatic rifle. People panicked and lay on the ground, some trying to hide behind seats. But Holmes continued firing indiscriminately. When one gun went silent, he drew another. He carried a total of 4 different weapons that night. The theater suddenly turned into a war zone. Some people escaped by playing dead. Others were shot just as they were about to flee. So much happened so quickly that even the survivors didn't realize what was happening. Some witnesses say the sounds blended with the film at one point. Reality was completely warped, and the moment became a nightmare for everyone. The police arrived at the scene in just a few minutes. Holmes was waiting at the back door of the theater. He had laid down his weapons. He didn't run. He didn't resist. He simply stood there. And when he was arrested, all he said was, "I am the Joker." This detail later appeared in police reports. Holmes's hair was dyed orange, meaning he had tried to imitate himself in the mirror before the attack. But of course, this wasn't a costume party. It was a massacre. 12 people lost their lives in the aftermath of the attack. More than 70 were injured. Some were physical, others suffered lifeless psychological wounds. People who had come to the theater that night for entertainment found themselves in a living hell. Each eyewitness who emerged from the scene told a different story. Some described seeing lifeless bodies on the ground. Others still heard the gunshots in their ears. But there was a common feeling: fear. That night, America realized that the movie theater was no longer just a place to watch movies. It could also be a place where death could be a close call. The theater was temporarily closed after the incident. Many people didn't dare go for weeks. The screening of Dark Knight Rises was overshadowed because it was now part of a tragedy. And Holmes's actions shook not only the theater itself, but the entire country. Meanwhile, some news websites listed the wrong seat number for the theater where the incident occurred. Holmes actually started shooting from the front right, but some sources wrote it as back left. While such details may seem minor, they have created misinformation about what happened that night. Anyway, it's not that important anyway, but this is a fact. That night, not only were the bullets shattered, but also the dreams, lives, and sense of security of innocent people were shattered. Chapter 3. Madness or cold-blooded planning. After James Holmes was arrested, the same question lingered on everyone's mind. Is this man insane, or is he a cold-blooded killer who knew exactly what he was doing? This question arose repeatedly throughout the trial. Holmes's actions were far beyond any ordinary crime. Everything was planned. He had been prepared for days, weeks, but at the same time, his state of mind, his actions, and his words suggested that he was mentally unstable. The trial lasted 3 years. Can you imagine? For 3 years, people watched Holmes in the courtrooms. Some couldn't look at him. Others tried to understand why. But perhaps the most difficult thing was Holmes's expressionless face. His lawyers argued that he was schizophrenic. Experts brought in from a mental hospital claimed that Holmes had lost touch with reality and was living in a fantasy world of his own making at the time of the incident. One doctor even said Holmes considered himself a worthless person and believed he had established a balance in the universe with this attack. But prosecutors had a different view. They had a mountain of evidence, plans, gun purchases, notes in the house. All of it pointed to a premeditated, step-by-step attack. This man is not crazy, the prosecutor said. This man is dangerous, and he knew exactly what he was doing. The jury reached a difficult decision. 12 dead, over 70 injured. The crime was proven, but when it came to sentencing, things got complicated. Holmes could have received either the death penalty or life imprisonment. The result? James Holmes couldn't be convinced that he was mentally ill, but neither was the death penalty. Instead, he received 12 life sentences and dozens of additional sentences. He is currently incarcerated in a maximum security prison in Colorado. He will never see the outside world again for the rest of his life. Throughout this trial, the public was divided. One side said, this man was crazy and should have received treatment. The other side said, you can't make so many plans under the guise of insanity. This is a choice. This is a massacre. And perhaps the most crucial question was, if someone is both insane and conscious enough to plan this entire attack, then who should the system judge and how? As a society, do we truly understand what true justice is in such cases? Or do we sometimes prefer to just say, he was crazy, just for the sake of relief? There's also the media influence. Some tried to connect this attack to movies. The Joker, in particular, was drawn into this. But the crime wasn't the product of a single character, but rather of an out-of-control mind that became synonymous with him. So, what do you think James Holmes really was? A sick mind or a diabolical planner? Leave a comment. The answer to this question may still be unfounded. As for my opinion, sometimes madness and evil become so intertwined that the line between them blurs. And when that line disappears, the innocent always suffer. This story ends here, but its impact lasted for years, and still does. If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video about true crime stories. Goodbye, and remember, sometimes darkness is right around the corner.